The chamber fell silent as the final vote appeared on the holographic display. 17 green lights, 0 red. Humanity was guilty. Commander Taeyang stood in the observation gallery, his hands gripped tight behind his back. Below him, on the main floor of the Galactic Council chamber, Counselor Mirai pleaded one last time. Her voice echoed through the massive space, but Taeyang could see it was pointless. The alien counselors had already made their decision. Please reconsider, Mirai said, her voice breaking. The research was defensive. We never intended to weaponize dark matter. Dr. Hyun's team was studying energy production, nothing more. The Thorian counselor, a massive creature covered in blue scales, raised one of his 4 arms. You claim innocence, but your scientists have created something that could destroy entire star systems. We cannot allow such danger to exist near our worlds. Taeyang felt anger burning in his chest. For 200 years, humanity had followed every rule. They had paid their dues, shared their technology, and fought in the Council's wars. And this was their reward. The lead counselor, an ancient being called Vexith, whose insect-like body towered over everyone else, spoke with finality. The vote is complete. Humanity is hereby exiled from Council space. You have 90 days to gather your people and leave. Any human found within our borders after that time will be eliminated. Mirai collapsed to her knees. Around the galaxy, billions of humans watched the broadcast in horror. Taeyang left the gallery and walked through the station corridors. His communication device buzzed constantly with messages from Earth, Mars, the colonies, the military. Everyone wanted answers. Everyone wanted hope. He had neither to give. In his quarters, he found Dr. Hyun waiting. The physicist looked like he had not slept in days. His eyes were red, his hair messy. I am sorry, Hyun said quietly. This is my fault. Taeyang poured 2 glasses of water and handed one to the scientist. They were looking for an excuse. If not your research, they would have found another reason. We grew too fast, became too strong. They fear us. Where will we go? Hyun asked. Every habitable system is claimed. The Council controls everything. Taeyang pulled up a star map. He pointed to a dark region beyond the galactic rim. The Abyss. It is the only place they will let us go. Hyun stared at the map in horror. The Abyss was legendary among spacefaring species. It was where stars went to die, where space itself was unstable. Dozens of civilizations had been exiled there over the millennia. None had ever returned. That is a death sentence, Hyun whispered. Maybe, Taeyang said, but we are still alive right now. And while we live, we fight. The next 90 days were chaos. Taeyang was given command of the Exodus fleet by the United Earth government. 50,000 ships of every type, from massive colony vessels to small family cruisers. 12 billion people, everything humanity had become, all forced to leave their homes. The logistics were nightmare. Food, water, medicine, fuel, seeds, animals, data archives, everything needed to survive in an unknown region. Taeyang barely slept, coordinating with thousands of captains and governors. On Earth, people rioted. Some refused to leave, saying they would rather die on their homeworld than flee into darkness. The military had to forcibly evacuate entire cities. It broke Taeyang's heart, but there was no choice. Mars and the outer colonies were easier. Those people had always been survivors, always adapted to harsh conditions. They packed up their mining equipment and their farms and prepared for the unknown. Mirai spent her final days on the Council station, trying desperately to negotiate better terms. She begged for supplies, for star charts of the Abyss, for any mercy. The Council gave them nothing but countdown reminders. On the final day, Taeyang stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable. Around him, the 50,000 ships of the human fleet gathered in formation. It was the largest fleet ever assembled, and it was fleeing in defeat. Below, Earth hung in the view screen, beautiful and blue. Taeyang had been born there in a small coastal town. He would never see it again. All ships report ready, his first officer said. Taeyang opened a channel to the entire fleet. People of humanity, this is Commander Taeyang. Today we leave everything we built. The Council thinks they have defeated us. They think exile to the Abyss is our end. But I tell you this, we are not broken. We are not finished. We will survive what they cannot imagine. And one day they will regret what they have done to us. He closed the channel and gave the order. Take us out. The fleet moved as one, thousands of drives igniting simultaneously. They passed Luna, then Mars, then Jupiter. At the edge of the solar system, a council fleet waited, their weapons locked on the humans. "They are making sure we leave," the tactical officer said bitterly. Taeyang said nothing. He memorized every detail of those alien ships. One day, he thought. One day, the human fleet jumped to hyperspace, beginning their journey to the galactic rim. It took 6 weeks of constant travel. They stopped only to refuel and transfer supplies between ships. 3 ships broke down and had to be abandoned, their passengers moved to other vessels. Finally, they reached the border. Ahead, space itself looked wrong. Stars flickered and died. Nebulas swirled in unnatural colors. Sensor readings made no sense. Behind them, council ships formed a line. As Taeyang watched, they activated quantum interdiction fields sealing the border. Humanity could not go back even if they wanted to. "Commander," the sensor officer said, her voice shaking, "I am reading massive spatial anomalies ahead. Gravity wells that should not exist. Radiation levels off the charts. Sir, nothing should be able to survive in there." Taeyang looked at the abyss one more time, then at his crew, young men and women who trusted him to lead them through hell itself. Behind them, 12 billion souls waiting for his decision. He thought of Earth, of the Council's betrayal, of the children who would grow up never knowing their homeworld. "We will make them regret this," he said quietly. "Forward. All ships follow us into the abyss." The Indomitable crossed the threshold first. The other 49,999 ships followed. The last human transmission to the Council was simple: "You will regret this." Then they were gone, swallowed by darkness and dying stars. The Council forces watched for a moment, then turned away. They had done their duty. Humanity was someone else's problem now. In the abyss, the human fleet emerged into a dead zone. The stars here were red giants, bloated and ancient. Planets were either frozen rocks or radiation-scorched wastelands. Sensors found no life, no resources, no hope. Taeyang stood on his bridge and looked into the void. His crew waited for orders, for inspiration, for anything. He spoke clearly, his voice carrying throughout the fleet. "This is our home now. We will not die here. We will build here. We will become something they cannot ignore, something they will fear. The Council wanted us gone. Now we will become their nightmare." In the darkness of the abyss, humanity began its transformation. 5 years in the abyss changed everything. The beautiful ships that left Earth were now scarred and patched. The people who once lived in comfort now knew hunger. 2 billion souls had died from starvation, disease, and accidents. Every day was a fight for survival. Daeho wiped sweat from his face as his mining drill bit into another asteroid. He had been a university professor once, teaching literature to bright students on Mars. Now he spent 14 hours a day in a pressure suit, searching for minerals in dead rocks. "Supervisor Daeho," a voice crackled in his helmet, "we are picking up something weird on Sector 7. Daeho sighed. Weird usually meant dangerous in the abyss. What kind of weird? Massive metallic readings, too big to be a ship. And it is giving off a strange energy signature. Daeho called his team back to the shuttle. They flew deeper into the asteroid field following the sensors. Then they saw it, a rogue planet, dark and cold, drifting alone through space. But on the surface, something gleamed. Massive structures, kilometers tall, made of a metal that seemed to absorb light. "Get me Commander Taeyang," Daeho said, his hands shaking. "Now." 3 days later, Taeyang himself arrived with a military escort. Captain Jiwon commanded the security fleet, her ships bristling with weapons. The abyss had taught humanity to be paranoid. They landed on the planet's surface. The structures were even more impressive up close. They formed a grid pattern that covered half the planet, disappearing into enormous underground chambers. "It is a factory," Dr. Hyun said, running his scanner over a wall. "But the technology is beyond anything I have seen, millions of years old at least." They found an entrance and went inside. The corridors were vast, designed for beings much larger than humans. Emergency lights still flickered, powered by some ancient source. Deep in the structure, they found a control room. Holographic displays activated as they entered, showing schematics in an alien language. Hyun worked furiously, trying to interface his computer with the systems. "This is incredible," he whispered. "This facility can transform raw matter into anything. Literally anything. Given enough energy, it could build a ship, a city, a weapon. The species that built this called it the Forge. Taeyang looked at the displays, his mind racing. Can we use it? Maybe. If we can provide enough power. The systems are damaged but functional. It would take years to repair and understand. We do not have years, Jiwan said. We have colonies dying. We need solutions now. As if answering her, alarms blared. Jiwan's communication device lit up. Captain, we have unknown ships approaching. 15 vessels armed and hostile. They rushed back to their ships. In orbit, alien vessels surrounded the planet. They were crude, ugly things, held together with mismatched parts. Pirates and scavengers, the bottom feeders of the galaxy who lived in the abyss's dark spaces. The lead alien ship broadcast a message in broken standard language. Planet is ours. You leave or die. Jiwan smiled coldly. 5 years of barely surviving had made humans desperate. Desperate people were dangerous. All ships, battle formation. Show them why they should fear us. The battle was brutal. The alien ships had numbers, but human pilots had nothing to lose. Jiwan's tactical brilliance and her crew's fury turned the tide. Within an hour, 12 alien ships were destroyed. The other 3 fled into hyperspace. It was humanity's first military victory since the exile. The crew cheered, but Jiwan felt no joy. She had killed thousands. It was necessary, but that did not make it right. Taeyang made his decision immediately. All available resources go to the Forge. Every scientist, every engineer, every worker. We repair this facility and make it work. The next 18 months were hell. Humans poured into the planet, now designated Forge Prime. They worked in shifts around the clock. Accidents killed hundreds. The stress broke thousands. But slowly, impossibly, they made progress. Hyun and his team, including his brilliant young student Hajun, worked on the power problem. The Forge needed massive amounts of energy to function, more than any reactor they had could provide. We need something revolutionary, Hajun said during a late-night meeting. He was barely 25 but had become essential to the project. Something that generates exponential power. Hyun looked at his student for a long moment. Then he pulled up his old research files, the ones that had gotten humanity exiled. Dark matter reactions, Hyun said quietly. Controlled, contained, focused. It is the only thing powerful enough. The room fell silent. This was the technology the Council had feared, the reason they had banished humanity. Hajun looked at the data. It will work. It has to work. Word reached Taeyang that night. He sat in his quarters aboard the Indomitable, which now orbited Forge Prime. Counselor Mirai contacted him via secure channel. She was old now, her hair white, her face lined with worry. Taeyang, I heard about the dark matter plan. Please reconsider. This is what got us exiled. If we use it, we prove the Council was right to fear us. Taeyang looked at her tired face. The Council exiled us to die. They took everything from us. I will not let fear of their judgment stop us from surviving. But what will we become? Mirai asked. If we embrace the very thing they feared, do we prove them right? I do not care about being right, Taeyang said. I care about keeping humanity alive. The Council made us choose between death and becoming what they feared. I choose survival. 6 months later, they were ready. The dark matter reactor, built into the heart of the Forge, was armed and tested. Hyun and Hajun stood in the control room, surrounded by nervous technicians. Beginning power-up sequence, Hajun announced. The reactor came to life. Dark matter, the mysterious substance that made up most of the universe, was being converted directly into pure energy. The readings climbed higher and higher. For a moment, everyone thought it would fail. Then, with a sound like thunder, the Forge awakened. Across the planet, billions of ancient machines roared to life. Production lines that had been silent for 1,000,000 years began to move. Matter converters hummed with power. The facility that could build anything was ready to work again. Taeyang gave the order. Begin production. First priority, warships. Not exploration vessels, not cargo ships, weapons. We need weapons. The forge began to build. Using raw materials mined from the abyss and powered by controlled dark matter, it created ships unlike anything humanity had made before. Fast, deadly, armored with materials that could withstand incredible punishment. The first ship rolled out of the forge 3 months later. Jiwan named it the Retribution. It was twice the size of the Indomitable and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. More ships followed, then orbital stations, then weapons platforms. The forge worked without stopping, fed by an endless supply of asteroids and powered by the dark matter reactor. Other humans found more ancient facilities in the abyss, smaller than the forge, but still functional. Each one was claimed, repaired, and put to work. 1 year after finding the forge, Taeyang stood before a gathering of humanity's leaders, military commanders, colony governors, scientists, and counselors. Behind him, through the viewport, the Forge Prime shipyard stretched for hundreds of kilometers. The council thought Exiled would destroy us, he said. They thought the abyss would be our grave. But look what we have built. Look what we have become. He brought up a holographic display showing their progress. 500 warships completed. 10 orbital factories operational. Human population stabilizing. Colonies expanding to 15 systems in the abyss. We have not just survived, Taeyang continued. We have grown strong, stronger than they ever imagined. And soon, very soon, we will show the council what humanity has become. In the back of the room, Mirai watched with a heavy heart. They had survived, yes. But at what cost? The bright, hopeful humanity that had joined the council was gone. In its place was something harder, colder, forged in suffering and rage. The forge continued to build through the night. In the darkness of the abyss, the sound of industry echoed like a promise of vengeance. Humanity had found its weapon. Now it just needed to decide what to do with it. 20 years in the abyss had turned humanity into something unrecognizable. The scattered refugees who once begged for mercy were gone. In their place stood an empire built on steel and determination. Admiral Soman stood on the bridge of her flagship Devastator, watching another alien world surrender. The planet below had been home to the Krell, a species that tried to raid human colonies. That was 3 days ago. Now their cities burned and their leaders begged for mercy. Admiral, they are offering complete surrender, her communications officer reported. They will give us everything. Resources, technology, hostages. Soman nodded coldly. Accept their surrender. Occupy their major cities. Any resistance is to be eliminated immediately. This was the 47th star system humanity had conquered in the abyss. Some species surrendered quickly. Others fought until they had nothing left. The result was always the same. Humanity won. The human population had grown to 15 billion. Forge Prime and its dozen sister facilities produced ships and weapons constantly. Every human above the age of 16 received military training. The abyss had taught them that only the strong survived. Taeyang, now called Supreme Commander by his people, governed from a massive station called the Citadel. It orbited Forge Prime and served as both military headquarters and government center. He was older now, his hair turning gray, but his eyes were still sharp and his determination unbreakable. In his office, he met with his senior advisors. Admiral Soman, fresh from her victory, sat beside General Minho, who commanded humanity's ground forces. Across from them sat Kyung, humanity's chief diplomat, and Dr. Hajun, now the head of all scientific research. We control 47 systems, Taeyang said, studying the star map. Our fleet numbers 5,000 warships. Our population is stable and growing. We have exceeded every projection, and we have made many enemies, Kyung said quietly. He was a slim man with careful eyes, always thinking several steps ahead. The species we have conquered fear us. The neutral species avoid us. We need allies, not just subjects. General Minho laughed. He was built like a tank and thought like one too. Allies, the abyss respects only strength. We show weakness and we die. There is difference between strength and brutality, Kyung insisted. The Velkir, for example. They are powerful, they control 20 systems, and they were also exiled by the Council. They could be natural allies, Soman considered this. The Velkir are reptilian warriors. honorable in their way. Opening communication would not hurt. Taeyang made his decision. Kyung, arrange a meeting with the Valkyr leadership. Som and Minho continue our expansion but avoid their territory. Hajun, what do you have to report? The scientist looked troubled. We have perfected the singularity drive. Ships equipped with it can create temporary wormholes, allowing instant travel anywhere in the galaxy. The room fell silent. That changed everything. We could reach Council space in minutes, Minho said, his eyes bright with hunger. We could, Hajun agreed. But there is more. 3 weeks ago, a Council reconnaissance probe entered the abyss. We destroyed it, but not before it transmitted data back to Council space. Taeyang leaned forward. What data? Everything. Images of our fleets, our stations, our weapons. Analysis of our dark matter technology, population estimates, military capabilities. Hajun pulled up the probe's last transmission. The Council knows we survived. They know we are strong. And from their internal communications we intercepted, they are terrified. Good, Taeyang thought. Let them be afraid. 2 weeks later, Kyung returned from his diplomatic mission. The meeting had taken place on a neutral asteroid, with both sides bringing minimal security. The Valkyr leader, a massive reptilian warrior named Krith, had been surprisingly reasonable. They want an alliance, Kyung reported. They have fought the Council's abandoned experiments and rogue species in the abyss for centuries. They respect our strength and share our anger at the Council. What do they want in return? Salman asked. Access to our forge technology, military support if they are attacked, and a promise that we will not turn on them as we have others. Taeyang thought carefully. An alliance with the Valkyr would give humanity legitimacy in the abyss and add their warriors to any future campaigns. But it would also mean sharing their greatest advantages. Tell them we accept, but on probation. We share basic technology and coordinate military actions. Full integration comes after they prove trustworthy. The alliance was formalized 1 month later. 3 other abyss species, seeing the human-Valkyr partnership, requested similar agreements. Humanity's isolated empire was becoming something larger, a coalition of the exiled and forgotten. But Taeyang's attention was elsewhere. In his private office, he watched recordings from the Council probe over and over. He saw how the Council fleets had reacted to the data, scrambling to reinforce their borders. He saw their leaders arguing in emergency sessions. They had exiled humanity to die. Instead, humanity had become their nightmare. His door opened. Old Mirai, now in her 80s but still sharp, entered with difficulty. She needed a cane these days and her hands shook. You are planning an invasion, she said. It was not a question. Taeyang did not deny it. They cast us into darkness. They wanted us dead. Every day for 20 years we have fought to survive. Now we are strong enough to go back. And do what? Conquer them? Destroy them? Become the very thing they feared? Mirai sat down heavily. I have watched us change, Taeyang. We were good people once. We believed in peace, in cooperation. Now we teach our children to be warriors. We conquer anyone who stands in our way. We do what we must, Taeyang said. The abyss does not reward mercy. But we are not in the abyss anymore. Or we do not have to be. Mirai looked at him with sad eyes. With the singularity drive, we could go anywhere. Find new galaxies, new homes far from the Council. We could start fresh, be who we once were, and let them win? Let them think they were right to exile us? Who cares what they think? We survived. We are strong. Is that not enough? Taeyang turned back to the star map. No, it is not enough. They need to know what they created. They need to face what they have done. 3 days later, a second Council probe entered the abyss. This one came with a white flag signal, requesting diplomatic contact. It carried a single envoy, an elderly Thorian named Velith who had voted against the exile 20 years ago. Taeyang had him brought to the Citadel. The alien looked around the massive human station with poorly hidden fear. He saw armed soldiers everywhere, ships coming and going, weapons being loaded. This was not a refugee camp. This was a war machine. Supreme Commander, Velith said, trying to keep his voice steady. I come with a message from the Galactic Council. We wish to open negotiations. Negotiations? Taeyang said. 20 years ago, we wanted negotiations. We begged for them. What did we receive? Exile, abandonment, a death sentence. The Council acted out of fear. Perhaps we were wrong. We are willing to discuss. You were not wrong, Taeyang interrupted. You were right to fear us. You just made the mistake of not destroying us when you could. He signaled to his guards. They seized Velith, who cried out in terror. Wait, I came under diplomatic protection. This violates every law of— We are not part of your laws, Taeyang said coldly. We are not part of your civilization. You made sure of that. He had Velith taken to the airlock. The execution was broadcast on all council channels, ensuring every species saw what happened to their envoy. Velith's last words were a plea for mercy that went unanswered. When it was done, Taeyang sent his own message to the council. His face appeared on screens across the galaxy. You wanted us gone. You thought exile would be our end, but the abyss did not kill us. It made us stronger. It made us into something you should truly fear. We are coming back, and this time we will not ask for your permission. The message ended. Across human space, the fleet began to mobilize. Ships gathered at staging points. Soldiers prepared their weapons. The Valkyr and allied species readied their own forces. In the council chambers, panic reigned. Some species wanted immediate military response. Others suggested evacuation. A few argued for trying diplomacy again, but it was too late for diplomacy. In the abyss, humanity opened the first singularity wormhole. Through it, Admiral Soman's vanguard fleet of 500 ships could see their destination. A council border world called Nexus Prime. All ships ready, Soman reported to Taeyang. Then begin, he ordered. Show them what humanity has become. The fleet surged through the wormhole. On the other side, the invasion of council space began. Nexus Prime burned. Admiral Soman watched from orbit as human bombardment turned the planet's military installations to glass. The council defenders had fought bravely but uselessly. Human weapons, powered by dark matter and refined through 20 years of survival, were beyond anything the council had seen. Orbital defense platforms destroyed. Her tactical officer reported. Enemy fleet eliminated. Ground forces are surrendering. Occupy all major cities, Soman ordered. Establish martial law. Anyone who resists is to be detained. Anyone who attacks our forces is to be neutralized. This was just the beginning. Across the galaxy, 12 council worlds faced simultaneous human attacks. The singularity drive allowed humanity to strike anywhere instantly. The council's carefully planned defensive lines meant nothing when the enemy could appear behind them. On the planet Thraxia, home to Councillor Vexith, who had led the vote to exile humanity, General Minho led the ground assault personally. His steel legions, soldiers, and powered armor that made them nearly unstoppable smashed through every defense. Minho stood in the ruins of Thraxia's capital city. Bodies lay everywhere, human and alien both. His armor was scarred from weapons fire, but he was alive. Around him, his soldiers secured the area. Find Vexith, Minho ordered. I want him alive. They found the counselor hiding in a bunker beneath his government complex. The insectoid alien who had once spoken so confidently about humanity's danger now trembled as human soldiers dragged him out. Please, Vexith begged. I was following council law. I had no choice. It was not personal. Minho removed his helmet, letting Vexith see his face. You took our homes. You sent us to die. You made it very personal. What will you do with me? Vexith asked. That depends on what the Supreme Commander decides. But if I were you, I would pray he is more merciful than you were to us. The war moved quickly. Within 6 months, humanity and their Valkyr allies had conquered 30 council worlds. The speed was shocking, the brutality worse. Some planets surrendered immediately and were treated reasonably. Others fought and suffered total defeat. On a hospital ship orbiting one conquered world, Dr. Nari treated the wounded. She had been a surgeon before the exile, working in a peaceful clinic on Earth. Now she patched up soldiers and tried not to think too hard about the people they had killed. A young Marine was brought in, burned badly by plasma fire. As Nari worked to save him, he kept talking through his pain. We hit the city with biological weapons, he mumbled, delirious. Command said it would make them surrender faster. Whole population just gone. Not dead, but they cannot have children now. Sterilized. Nari's hands froze. What city? The Marine told her before passing out. Nari finished treating him, then accessed the military database. What she found made her sick. Multiple planets had been hit with biological weapons, populations sterilized to prevent future resistance. Cities bombed with weapons that would leave radiation for centuries. She gathered the evidence and sent it to Kyung, the diplomat. He was the only senior leader who might care. Kyung received the data aboard the Citadel. He watched the recordings, read the reports, and felt his soul hurt. This was not war. This was extermination. He brought everything to Tae-yang. The Supreme Commander listened in silence, his face showing no emotion. "You knew," Kyung said quietly. "You knew we were doing this." "I authorized necessary measures to secure victories quickly," Tae-yang replied. "Every day the war continues, more humans die. These actions save our soldiers' lives. By making us monsters," Kyung stood, anger in his voice. "The Council exiled us because they feared what we might become. We have proven them right. The Council exiled us to die. Everything we have done since then is their responsibility. That is a coward's answer. We choose our actions. We choose what we become." Kyung pointed to the data. "I joined this war because I thought we were fighting for justice, for our right to exist. But this is just revenge dressed up as military necessity." Tae-yang stood as well. "You think I want this? You think I enjoy watching our people become killers? But we are at war with the entire galaxy. We do what we must to win." "No," said a voice from the doorway. Dr. Hyun entered, looking older than his years. "We do what is easy because we are afraid. Afraid of losing. Afraid of being weak, afraid of being hurt again." He placed his own research on Taeyang's desk. "I created the technology that started all this. I carry that guilt every day. But I will not stay silent while we use my work to commit genocide." For the first time in years, Taeyang looked uncertain. "What would you have me do? Show mercy and watch more humans die? The Council shows us no mercy. Then we should be better than them," Hyun said simply. The argument was interrupted by urgent news. The Council had assembled its full military might at a strategic location called the Nexus, a hyperspace junction that controlled access to half the galaxy. 15,000 ships, the largest fleet ever gathered. Admiral Soman arrived at the Citadel within hours. "This is it. The decisive battle. If we win, the Council cannot stop us. If we lose, our invasion fails." "How many ships can we field?" Tae-yang asked. 8,000 plus 3,000 Valkyr vessels. We will be outnumbered. Our technology is superior. Our tactics are proven. We can win. Taeyang looked at his gathered leaders. "Prepare the fleet. We end this." The Battle of the Nexus lasted 3 days. It was the bloodiest battle in galactic history. Human ships, faster and more heavily armed, tore through Council formations. But the Council had numbers and desperation. Soman commanded from the Devastator, coordinating thousands of ships across a battlefield that spanned millions of kilometers. Around her, vessels exploded. Lives ended by the thousands every minute. On the second day, a Council dreadnought rammed the Devastator, nearly destroying both ships. Soman held her bridge together through force of will, issuing orders even as fires burned around her. Commander Yoonji led Special Forces operations during the battle, taking her team aboard enemy command ships. They eliminated 3 Council admirals through infiltration and assassination, throwing the enemy fleet into chaos. On the third day, the tide turned. The Valkyr heavy cruisers broke through the Council's center line. Human carriers launched wave after wave of fighters. The Council formation collapsed. By the time it ended, both sides had lost millions. Space was filled with debris and bodies. Soman's fleet had been reduced to 4,000 ships. The Council fleet was destroyed. Soman stood in what remained of her bridge, covered in blood and soot. Her communications officer, one of the few survivors, looked at her with hollow eyes. "Admiral, the Council is broadcasting on all channels. They want peace talks, finally," Soman thought. But she felt no victory, no joy. Just exhaustion and the weight of all the death. The message reached Taeyang within minutes. The Council surrendered, requesting negotiations. They offered to discuss terms, to give humanity anything reasonable, to avoid more bloodshed. Taeyang prepared his response when his door opened again. Mirai, too sick to leave her bed most days, had come to see him. She looked like she might collapse at any moment. "Taeyang," she said softly, "I am dying. The doctors give me weeks. Before I go, I need you to hear me one last time." She sat down with his help, breathing hard. "We survived the abyss. Against all odds, we lived. We built an empire from nothing. That should be enough. That should be our victory, but they need to pay," Taeyang began. "They are paying. Millions dead, 30 worlds conquered, their fleet destroyed. They are begging for peace." "What more do you want?" "I want them to know they were wrong," Taeyang said, his voice breaking for the first time in years. "I want them to admit it." Mirai reached out and took his hand. You are not fighting for humanity anymore. You are fighting for your own pain. Let it go. Let us finally rest. She stood to leave but collapsed. Taeyang caught her, holding her frail body. Promise me, she whispered. Promise you will try to be what we once were. Good people who wanted peace. I promise, he said, and he meant it. Mireille died that night, surrounded by the few friends she had left. Her last words were about Earth, about the ocean, about hope. Taeyang stood at her funeral looking at the faces of those who came. Soldiers, scientists, colonists, children, all of them scarred by what they had been through. All of them waiting to see what came next. He made his decision. Contact the council, he told Kyung. Tell them we will negotiate. But on our terms. The negotiations took place on Bastion 7, a neutral space station at the border between council space and the territories humanity now controlled. Taeyang arrived with a small delegation. Kyung, Admiral Soman, and Dr. Hajun accompanied him. General Minho wanted to come armed, but Taeyang ordered him to stay behind. The council sent 17 representatives, one from each member species. They looked tired, afraid, and defeated. Among them was Vexith, the insectoid counselor who had led the vote to exile humanity. He could barely look at Taeyang. They gathered in a large chamber with windows showing the stars. 23 years ago, humanity had stood in a similar room and been sentenced to death. Now they stood as conquerors. Taeyang did not waste time with pleasantries. You are here because your fleets are destroyed, your worlds are conquered, and you have no choice. I am here because I am tired of killing and want to go home. So let us talk. The lead council negotiator, a diplomatic Thorian named Kellis, spoke carefully. What are your terms, Supreme Commander? Taeyang projected a holographic document. First, humanity receives permanent seats on an expanded galactic council. Not as junior members, but as equals with full voting rights. Agreed, Kelly said quickly. Second, all exile laws are abolished permanently. No species can ever be cast out again, regardless of the reason. Kellis looked at his fellow counselors. They nodded. Agreed. Third, you will pay reparations to humanity for the exile. Resources, territory, and technology to compensate for what we lost. This caused argument among the council representatives. They negotiated for hours over exact amounts. Finally, they agreed to partial reparations, enough to rebuild human colonies, but not enough to bankrupt council worlds. Fourth, Taeyang continued, full technology sharing between all species. No more secrets, no more hidden research. We all advance together. That is dangerous, Vexith spoke for the first time. Some technologies are too destructive to share freely. Like dark matter weapons? Taeyang asked coldly. The technology you feared so much you exiled us for it? Yes, we will share everything. That way no species can claim fear as an excuse for cruelty. After more debate, this too was agreed upon. Finally, Taeyang said, you will issue a formal apology to every human who died in the abyss, to every family torn apart, to everyone who suffered because you were afraid. The room fell silent. This was harder for them than any material concession. Pride hurt more than losing ships. We cannot apologize for trying to protect our people, one counselor said. Then there is no deal. Taeyang stood to leave. We will continue the war until you are destroyed completely. Kellis raised his hands desperately. Wait, please, we will draft an apology. It will acknowledge our mistakes and the suffering we caused. Taeyang sat back down. They spent the next day working out the exact wording. It had to be genuine, had to mean something. Kyung helped craft language that satisfied both sides. When it was done, the treaty was signed by all parties. The war was over. Humanity had won, but Taeyang felt no triumph as he returned to the Citadel. He went to his quarters and looked at old pictures from before the exile. Earth green and beautiful, people smiling, living without fear. That world was gone forever. Admiral Soman retired from military service the day after the treaty was signed. She bought a small house on one of the conquered worlds and tried to live quietly, but nightmares of the battle came every night. She saw the faces of those she had killed, heard the screams of the dying. Victory tasted like ashes. General Minho remained in the military but changed his focus to training and peacekeeping. He worked with Valkyr warriors to create integrated forces that could maintain order. He never spoke about the war, but those close to him knew it haunted him. Dr. Hajun took all remaining research on dark matter weapons and destroyed it. He stood in his laboratory and watched decades of work burn. Some doors should stay closed, he told his assistants. Some knowledge does more harm than good. Kyung became humanity's first Supreme Counselor, representing humans in the reformed Galactic Council. He pushed for reconciliation programs, for cultural exchange, for healing the wounds of war. It was slow work, and many on both sides resisted, but progress came. On a planet called New Andara, Governor Isul created a model for how humans and aliens could live together. She protected alien residents from discrimination, established fair laws, and invested in rebuilding infrastructure. Her colony became proof that the two sides could coexist peacefully. Dr. Nari established the Memory Corps, an organization dedicated to documenting every atrocity committed during the war. She interviewed soldiers, civilians, victims from all species. The records were kept in a massive archive, accessible to anyone. "We must remember what we did," she said. "All of it. The good and the terrible. Only by remembering can we avoid repeating our mistakes." 5 years after the war ended, Earth was reopened for human settlement. The planet had been maintained by automated systems during the exile, but felt empty now. Taeyang was among the first to return. He stood in the ruins of his childhood home, looking at the ocean. The waves still crashed against the shore like they always had. Some things did not change even when everything else did. "It is beautiful," a voice said behind him. A young girl, maybe 10 years old, stood nearby with her father. "Is this really where humans came from?" "Yes," Taeyang said. "This was our first home. Why did we leave?" she asked. Her father started to explain about the exile, but Taeyang interrupted. "We left because we had to, but now we are back, and we are never leaving again." The girl smiled and ran off to play in the waves. Her father nodded to Taeyang respectfully before following. Taeyang watched them go. That girl had been born in the abyss, had never known Earth, yet she played in the ocean like generations before her. Life continued. It always did. 10 years after the war, the galaxy had changed completely. Human technology flowed freely to council worlds, advancing medicine, engineering, and communication. In return, humans learned alien sciences that filled gaps in their knowledge. Trade routes reopened. Cultural exchanges became common. On stations throughout the galaxy, humans and aliens worked side by side. Children of different species played together, learning to see each other as friends rather than enemies. The human stellar dominion, as humanity's government was officially called, remained powerful. The Forge and its sister facilities continued producing ships and equipment, but now they built for construction as well as defense. Hospital ships, transport vessels, orbital habitats. The abyss itself was being tamed. Human and Velkir forces worked together to clear out pirates and dangerous anomalies. Some of the dead systems were being terraformed, given new life through technology that combined human engineering with alien biological sciences. Taeyang stepped down as Supreme Commander when he turned 70. He had led humanity for nearly 30 years, through its darkest hour and its greatest triumph. But he was tired, and there were younger leaders ready to take his place. He retired to a small apartment on Forge Prime, where he could see the factories that had saved humanity. He spent his days writing, recording everything that happened so future generations would know the truth. One day, 50 years after the war ended, an elderly Hajun visited him. The scientist was almost 80 now, walking with a cane, but his mind was still sharp. "I thought you might want to see this," Hajun said, showing Taeyang a holographic display. It showed children in schools across the galaxy, human and alien, learning together. They teach both versions of history now. The Council's fear of us, our exile, the war and the peace, everything. "What did they learn about us?" Taeyang asked. "That we were victims who became victors, that we suffered terribly and made others suffer in turn, that we found a way to peace when peace seemed impossible." Hajun smiled sadly. "They learned that we were neither heroes nor villains, just people trying to survive. Is that enough?" Taeyang wondered. "It is honest. That is better than being remembered as perfect." They sat in silence for a while, two old men watching ships come and go from the forge. So much had changed, so much had been lost, but humanity had survived. That evening, Taeyang received a message. It was an invitation to Earth, to a ceremony dedicating a memorial to all who had died during the exile and war. Names of humans and aliens, billions of them, carved in stone so they would never be forgotten. He accepted and made the journey to Earth. The memorial was massive. covering several kilometers near what had once been the United Nations headquarters. Names stretched as far as the eye could see. Dr. Nari found Taeyang standing before the memorial, tears running down his face. She was old too, her hair white, but she still directed the memory corps. "Do you regret it?" she asked quietly. Taeyang thought for a long time. "I regret what we had to become, but I cannot regret that we survived. Every person alive today exists because we refused to die in the abyss." "That is fair," Nari said. A group of young people approached the memorial, human and alien together. One of them, a human girl about 16, noticed Taeyang. "Are you the Supreme Commander?" she asked with awe. "The one from the history books?" "I was," Taeyang said. "A long time ago." "You saved humanity," she said earnestly. "No." Taeyang looked at the names on the memorial. "They saved humanity. All of them. Every person who suffered, who fought, who died, who survived.